The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive ring of metal and glass that orbited the blue planet of Zentara Prime. Inside, representatives from 200 different alien species sat in their designated seats, waiting for the session to begin. The air hummed with the sound of countless translation devices, turning clicks, hisses, and musical tones into words that everyone could understand. Ambassador Jake Coleman stood at the human observation platform, a small elevated spot near the back of the chamber. He wore a simple black suit, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the alien delegates file into their seats. Beside him, his aide Lisa Morgan held a datapad, her jaw tight as she scrolled through the day's agenda. "They put it first," Lisa whispered, showing Jake the screen. "The motion to ban us from joining the council. They're not even going to wait." Jake nodded slowly but said nothing. He had expected this. The Galactic Unity Council had existed for over 10,000 years, and humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. To these ancient civilizations, humans were children playing with toys they didn't understand. The chamber lights dimmed, and a massive crystalline being floated to the center of the room. Speaker Tharnax was older than human civilization itself, his body made of living crystal that refracted light into rainbow patterns. His voice echoed through every translator in the room. "The council recognizes Representative Krelthus of the Vaxian Empire." A tall, reptilian creature stood from his seat. His scales were deep purple, and his eyes glowed amber in the dim light. Krelthus moved to the speaking platform with confident steps, his tail swishing behind him. "Honored council members," Krelthus began, his voice smooth and educated. "Today I present Motion 7-4-3-9, a proposal to permanently ban the species known as humans from membership in this council." A wave of chittering and clicking filled the chamber. Several delegates turned to look at Jake, their various eyes gleaming with what might have been amusement. "The evidence is clear," Krelthus continued, raising one clawed hand. A holographic display appeared above the center of the room, showing images of Earth. This species has existed for barely 200,000 years. In that time, they have waged over 15,000 wars against their own kind. The hologram shifted, showing battlefields from human history. Ancient soldiers with swords, cavalry charges, trenches filled with mud and blood, mushroom clouds rising over cities. "They have created weapons capable of destroying their own planet," Krelthus said, his voice rising. "They have polluted their world, driven countless species to extinction, and spent more resources on killing each other than on exploring the stars." More images appeared. Smokestacks belching dark clouds, plastic filling oceans, forests burning. A delegate from the Insectoid Threne Collective made a buzzing sound that translated as laughter. "How long do these creatures even live?" the delegate asked. "On average 70 to 80 of their years," Krelthus replied. The chamber erupted in noise. "The Threne live for 300 years. The Vaxians for 500. Speaker Tharnax himself was over 12,000 years old. "Infants!" someone called out. "Playing with fire!" Another voice added. Jake felt Lisa tense beside him, but he gently touched her arm. She looked at him, anger flashing in her eyes, but he shook his head slightly. "Not yet," Krelthus smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "The humans have barely left their own solar system, yet they request a seat at this council. They bring nothing of value. Their technology is primitive. Their lifespans are laughable. Their history is written in blood." He gestured again, and the hologram showed human cities, crowded and chaotic. "They cannot even agree among themselves. They speak over 7,000 different languages. They fight over invisible lines they draw on maps. They worship different gods and kill each other over which belief is correct." A delegate with 6 arms raised one appendage. "What could such a species possibly contribute to galactic civilization?" "Nothing," Krelthus said flatly. "They are violent, short-lived, and primitive. I propose we ban them not just from membership, but from attending council sessions entirely. Let them grow up for another 1,000 years, if they survive that long without destroying themselves." The chamber filled with sounds of agreement. Jake watched as delegate after delegate nodded or made their species equivalent gesture of approval. He had known this would be difficult, but seeing it happen still felt like a weight pressing on his chest. Speaker Tharnax raised one crystalline arm, and silence fell. "Does anyone speak against this motion?" Jake waited. The silence stretched. None of the other species would defend humanity. Why would they? Most of them had met humans only briefly, through trade or diplomatic messages. They had no reason to oppose the Vaxian Empire. "Very well," Tharnax said. "We shall proceed to, I invoke the right of final testimony," Jake said, his voice clear and steady. Every eye in the chamber turned to him. Speaker Tharnax's crystal body shifted colors, a sign of surprise. "Ambassador Coleman," Tharnax said slowly. "You wish to speak before judgment?" "I do," Jake said. "It is my right under council law. 3 minutes before any motion of exclusion is voted upon." Krelthus hissed in annoyance, but Tharnax nodded. "The right is recognized. You may approach the speaking platform." Jake walked down from the observation area, his footsteps echoing in the suddenly quiet chamber. Lisa watched him go, her hands gripping the datapad so hard her knuckles turned white. Jake reached the platform and stood before the council. 200 alien faces looked down at him. Some curious, some amused, some openly hostile. "Members of the council," Jake began, "I do not dispute Representative Krelthus' facts. Humanity has fought countless wars. We have made terrible mistakes. Our history is indeed written in blood." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the chamber. They had expected him to argue, to make excuses. "We are young," Jake continued. "We are violent. We are primitive compared to your great civilizations. All of this is true." Krelthus leaned forward, his amber eyes narrowed. "This was too easy. However," Jake said, "I would ask the council's permission to show one piece of evidence before you vote. A video that provides context for human nature. More violence?" A delegate called out. "More wars?" "No," Jake said quietly. "Something else. Something I believe you should see." Speaker Tharnax considered for a moment. "What is the nature of this video?" "It is footage from a human colony ship," Jake said. "From 15 years ago. It is 3 minutes and 40 seconds long. I ask only that you watch it before making your decision." Krelthus laughed, a harsh barking sound. "Let him show his video. It will change nothing." Other delegates made sounds of agreement. Tharnax gestured with one crystalline limb. "You may proceed, Ambassador Coleman, but be brief." Jake pulled a small device from his pocket and connected it to the chamber's holographic system. The lights dimmed further. Above the center of the room, the hologram changed from images of Earth to something new. Darkness, stars, and a ship tumbling through the void. Jake stood silently at the platform, watching the faces of the council members as the video began to play. Lisa had asked him if this would work, if one video could change 200 minds. He had told her he didn't know. But it was all they had. The chamber fell silent as the footage rolled on. The hologram showed the bridge of a human ship. The camera angle suggested it was from a security recording, positioned high in one corner. A man sat in the captain's chair, looking tired. His uniform was rumpled and dark circles shadowed his eyes. Text appeared at the bottom of the image, identifying him as Captain Ryan Brooks of the colony ship Wanderer. Around the bridge, 5 other crew members worked at their stations. The ship looked old, its metal walls patched in several places. This was not a military vessel. No weapons lined its hull. No soldiers stood at attention. This was a transport carrying families to a new home. "Captain, I'm picking up something," a young woman at the sensor station said. Her name tag read Kate Sanders, Chief Engineer. Ryan sat up straighter. "What kind of something?" "A signal," Kate said, her fingers moving across her console. "Distress beacon, automated, coming from about 2 million kilometers ahead." The bridge went quiet. Ryan stood and walked to Kate's station, looking over her shoulder at the screen. "Can you identify the source?" he asked. Kate shook her head. The signal pattern is nothing I've seen before. Not human, that's for sure. Another crew member, a man with graying hair, spoke up from the navigation station. Captain, we're already running tight on fuel. Any detour could be a problem. In the council chamber, several delegates shifted in their seats. The practical concern was familiar to them. Resources were precious in space. Fuel consumption had to be calculated carefully. On the screen, Ryan rubbed his face with both hands. He looked at the tactical display on the main view screen, showing their course to the colony world they were heading toward. How much would it cost us? Ryan asked. In fuel terms. The navigator ran calculations. If we investigate and then resume course, we'd arrive with maybe 5% fuel remaining. That's cutting it really close, sir. A third crew member stood up. The text identified him as Paul Davidson, medical officer. Ryan, we've got 300 people on this ship, families, children. If we run out of fuel, we're all dead in space. Ryan nodded slowly. I know. Then we keep going, Paul said. We have to. The camera showed Ryan standing still for a long moment, staring at the view screen. Then he turned to his crew. Change course, he said quietly. Head for that signal. Kate looked up at him. Captain, we heard a distress call, Ryan said. We're going to answer it. The scene shifted. The hologram now showed the view from the Wanderer's external cameras. Ahead in the darkness of space, debris floated in a scattered field. Metal fragments, frozen atmosphere crystals, pieces of hull plating. And in the middle of it all, two ships. One was small, sleek, with purple metal that caught the starlight. Even damaged, it was clearly advanced technology. The other vessels circling it like sharks were rough and crude. Covered in mismatched armor plates and bristling with weapons. In the council chamber, Kralthus leaned forward, his claws gripping his seat's armrests. Magnify the purple ship, Ryan's voice said from the video. The camera zoomed in. The ship's hull showed scorch marks and holes. Its engines flickered weakly. And on its side a symbol was visible, the same symbol that hung above Kralthus' seat in the council chamber. The mark of the Vaxian Empire. The attacking ships were firing, their weapons tearing into the Vaxian vessels' failing shields. Those are Kreth pirates, Kate said on the recording. I've heard about them. They don't take prisoners. The Wanderer's bridge was silent for several seconds. Scan the Vaxian ship, Ryan said. Life signs? Kate worked at her console, reading 12 life forms. Vaxian, from what I can tell. Their life support is failing. They've got maybe an hour left. And the pirates? 4 ships. Each one is better armed than we are. Captain, we're a colony transport. We've got point defense lasers for meteors, that's it. Those pirates would tear us apart in seconds. Paul spoke up again. Ryan, we can't fight them. We don't have weapons. We don't have shields strong enough. This isn't our fight? The camera showed Ryan's face. He was looking at the view screen, watching the Vaxian ship take hit after hit. How many people on that ship? Ryan asked. 12, Kate said. I told you. 12 people are going to die if we don't do something, Ryan said. The navigator turned in his seat. Captain, please think about this. We've got 300 lives on our ship. Our families. My daughter is in the sleeping quarters right now. We can't throw their lives away. Ryan kept watching the screen. The Vaxian ship's shields were almost gone now. One more good hit, and the hull would breach. Captain, Paul said, his voice urgent. We have to go, now, before the pirates notice us. Ryan turned to face his crew. Kate, can we get between them? Kate stared at him. Between the pirates and the Vaxian ship? Yes, we could, Kate said slowly. But our shields won't last long under that kind of fire. We don't need them to last long, Ryan said. Just long enough for you to board the Vaxian ship and repair their engines. The bridge erupted in voices. Everyone speaking at once, telling Ryan this was suicide. This was insane. They had families to protect. Ryan raised his hand and the crew fell silent. I know what I'm asking, he said. I know the risks, but I need volunteers. Anyone willing to help me try to save those people, stay on the bridge. Anyone who wants no part of this, go to the sleeping quarters and be with your families. I won't force anyone." No one moved for several seconds. Then Paul stood up. "This is crazy," Paul said. "Absolutely crazy." He walked toward the door. Ryan nodded, his face sad but understanding. Paul stopped at the door and turned around. "I'll go prep the medical bay. We're going to need it." He sat back down at his station. Ryan smiled slightly. Kate stood up. "I'll need a team. At least 4 people who can work in zero gravity and handle basic repairs." "Put out the call," Ryan said. The navigator sighed heavily. "My daughter is going to kill me for this." He began entering new coordinates. Course set for intercept. "We'll be in position in 3 minutes. The scene shifted again. The hologram showed the Wanderer moving forward, its old engines burning bright as it accelerated toward the battle. The pirate ships noticed the new arrival and began to turn. Inside the Vaxian ship, the camera angle changed to show the bridge of the damaged vessel. Vaxian crew members worked frantically at sparking consoles, trying to keep their ship alive. Their captain, identified as Officer Zexter, stared at his viewscreen in disbelief. "What is that ship doing?" Zexter asked in his own language. The translation appearing as text, one of his crew members looked up from a damaged console. "Sir, it's positioning itself between us and the pirates." "That's a colony transport," Zexter said. "It has no weapons. No armor. They're going to die." He opened a communications channel, his voice frantic. "Unknown human vessel, this is Officer Zexter of the Vexian scout ship Crimson Wing. You must retreat immediately. You cannot help us. Save yourselves." Ryan's voice came back through the static. "Crimson Wing, this is Captain Ryan Brooks of the Wanderer. We heard your distress call. We're here to help." "You'll be destroyed," Zexter said. "Please leave while you can." "Can't do that," Ryan said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "We're sending over a repair team. Keep your people away from the engine section." Zexter watched his screen as the human ship moved directly into the line of fire. The pirates opened up with everything they had. Energy beams and projectiles slammed into the Wanderer's shields, which flared bright blue and began to fail. "They're insane," one of Zexter's crew members whispered. "No," Zexter said quietly, watching the humans sacrifice themselves. "There's something else entirely." The hologram froze on an image of the Wanderer, its shields burning away under the pirate assault, positioning itself as a shield between the pirates and the Vaxian ship. In the council chamber, not a single delegate made a sound. The council chamber remained frozen for what felt like an eternity. Then, slowly, delegates began to speak. Not in the organized, formal way of council proceedings, but in scattered conversations that spread like ripples across water. Speaker Tharnax's crystalline form shifted through several colors, a sign of deep processing. He raised one limb and the various conversations quieted. "Ambassador Coleman," Tharnax said, his ancient voice resonating through the chamber. "The council must deliberate on what has been presented. However, before we do, I have a question." Jake stood straight. "Yes, Speaker?" "You have shown us examples of human sacrifice, acts of valor, certainly. But you have also acknowledged humanity's capacity for violence and destruction. How do we reconcile these two opposing natures? How can the same species that wages war also perform such selfless acts?" Jake was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. "Because they come from the same place, Speaker Tharnax. Both the violence and the compassion stem from the same core trait. Humans feel things deeply, perhaps too deeply. When we hate, we destroy. But when we love, we sacrifice. When we fear, we attack. But when we hope, we save." He stepped forward slightly. "Other species in this council have learned to control emotion. You've become wise, calculated, logical. You've survived for thousands of years by being careful and measured. Humanity hasn't learned that yet. Maybe we never will. We still make decisions with our hearts as much as our heads." A delegate from the Insectoid Threne Collective spoke up, her mandibles clicking. "But such emotional decision-making is inefficient. Dangerous. It leads to waste and suffering. Yes, Jake agreed. It does. Humans make terrible decisions all the time because we let emotion override logic. We waste resources on art and music that has no survival value. We risk our lives for pets. We cry at stories that never happened. He looked at the three delegate. But we also run into burning buildings because we heard someone screaming. We jump into freezing water because someone is drowning. We give our last food to hungry children who aren't even our own. Logic didn't save Officer Zexter's crew. Emotion did. Krauthus stood again. His voice was different now, lacking the mocking tone from before. Ambassador Coleman, I must ask, the crew of the Wanderer, did they have a choice? Could Captain Brooks have ordered them to flee? Yes, Jake said. He specifically told his crew they could refuse. He gave them the option to leave the bridge and be with their families instead of risking their lives. And they stayed, Krauthus said quietly. Most of them stayed, Jake corrected. Some did leave. Some went to be with their families in those final moments. There's no shame in that. But enough stayed to make the rescue attempt possible. Krauthus sat down slowly. What happened to the families? The 300 civilians on the Wanderer? Jake's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went distant. They knew what was happening. Captain Brooks didn't hide it from them. The whole ship heard the announcement. They knew they were going to die saving aliens they'd never met. And? The Threen delegate pressed. They voted on it, Jake said. Captain Brooks put it to a ship-wide vote. Continue to their colony world and ignore the distress call or attempt a rescue and likely die. 300 people voted. 247 voted to attempt the rescue. The chamber went silent again. There were children on that ship, a delegate said, her voice barely above a whisper. 63 children, Jake confirmed. Ages 3 months to 17 years. Their parents voted to risk their lives. Some voted against it. Most voted for it. Lisa, standing beside Jake at the observation platform, finally spoke. Her voice was thick with emotion. My sister was on the Wanderer. She was 14. Her name was Amy Morgan. The delegates turned to look at her. Lisa's hands were shaking, but she continued. I got a message from her. Recorded just before the ship was destroyed. She said she was scared. She said she didn't want to die, but she also said she understood why they had to try. Because it was the right thing to do. Lisa wiped at her eyes. She said she hoped the aliens they saved would remember that humans tried, that we cared, that we thought their lives mattered. Speaker Tharnax's color shifted to a deep, somber blue. Your sister was very brave, Miss Morgan. She was terrified, Lisa said. But she died anyway. That's what humans do. We do the right thing even when we're scared. Especially when we're scared. Another delegate spoke up, this one from a species with flowing, liquid-like form. I have a concern. If humans are so willing to sacrifice themselves, does that not make them dangerous to themselves? Should they not be protected from their own nature? Jake shook his head. We don't need protection from who we are. Yes, humanity makes costly choices. Yes, we value individual lives in ways that might seem inefficient, but those choices define us. Take away our ability to choose sacrifice, and you take away what makes us human. The liquid delegate rippled thoughtfully. But surely there must be limits. Some situations where sacrifice is too great, too wasteful. There are always limits, Jake said. Not every human would make the choice Captain Brooks made. Not every human agrees with what the Wanderer did. We argue about it constantly. Should they have saved themselves? Should they have prioritized the children on their ship? There's no universal answer. But the important thing is that they had the choice, and they made it. Tharnax spoke again. Let us proceed with deliberation. The Council will now debate the motion to ban humanity from membership. What followed was hours of discussion. Delegates spoke for and against humanity. Some argued that the sacrifices Jake presented proved humans were too self-destructive to be trusted with galactic affairs. Others countered that such compassion was exactly what the galaxy needed. The Zentran delegate stood and shared how the Kepler 442 mining station sacrifice had saved her cousin. She had never known until today that the humans died deliberately, thinking it was an accident. A crystalline delegate spoke about the researchers saved by the Hope, scientists who had since made breakthrough discoveries that benefited multiple species. Through it all, Krelthus sat quietly, his amber eyes distant. Finally he stood. "I wish to withdraw my motion," he said. The chamber fell silent. Tharnax's crystalline form flickered. "Representative Krelthus, are you certain?" "I am," Krelthus said. He turned to face Jake directly. "Ambassador Coleman, I proposed this ban because I believed humanity was too dangerous, too violent, too young to join this council. I believed you would bring chaos and destruction." He paused, his tail swishing once. "I was wrong. Not about humanity's capacity for violence. That is still real and concerning. But I was wrong to judge you only by your worst moments while ignoring your best ones." Krelthus looked around the chamber. "My brother Zexter lived because humans who owed him nothing gave everything for him. I dishonor his survival and their sacrifice by arguing that such a species has no place here." He sat down. "I withdraw my motion." Tharnax's form shifted to a contemplative green. "The motion to ban humanity has been withdrawn. However, the question of human membership remains. I propose a new motion. Humanity shall be granted provisional membership to the Galactic Unity Council, with Ambassador Jake Coleman recognized as Earth's official representative." "I second the motion," the Zentran delegate said immediately. "Third," said the crystalline delegate. The vote was called. One by one, delegates registered their support. Not all of them voted yes. Some still harbored doubts about humanity's violent nature. Some worried about the chaos young species might bring. But the majority voted in favor. When the final tally appeared, the motion had passed with 73% support. Tharnax's form blazed bright with light. "By the authority of this Council, humanity is hereby granted provisional membership. Ambassador Coleman, please approach." Jake walked to the center of the chamber. Tharnax floated down to meet him, extending a crystalline limb. "On behalf of the Galactic Unity Council, I welcome humanity to the greater galactic community. We acknowledge your flaws, your youth, and your capacity for both great violence and great compassion. We grant you this membership not because you are perfect, but because you represent something the galaxy has forgotten: the value of sacrifice, the importance of choosing compassion over logic." Jake took the crystalline limb carefully. It was warm to the touch, thrumming with energy. "We accept this honor, Speaker Tharnax," Jake said formally, "and we promise to do our best to earn the trust you've placed in us." "See that you do," Tharnax said, but there was warmth in his tone. "The Council will reconvene in 3 days to discuss humanity's first proposals and initiatives. Until then, this session is adjourned." The delegates began to file out, many stopping to speak with Jake. The Zentran delegate clasped his hand with 3-fingered grip. The crystalline delegate touched his shoulder, transmitting a pulse of gratitude. Even some who had voted against membership approached to wish him well. Krelthus was one of the last to approach. He stood before Jake, his tail still. "My brother will be pleased," Krelthus said. "He has worked for years to bring about this day." "Thank you for withdrawing your motion," Jake said. "I should thank you," Krelthus replied. "You reminded me that Zexter lives because of human sacrifice. I nearly dishonored that by condemning your entire species." The hologram shifted to show the interior of the Wanderer. Emergency lights flashed red along the corridors as the ship shuddered under weapons fire. Kate Sanders ran through the hallway in a bulky maintenance suit, her helmet under one arm. Behind her, 4 other crew members followed. All suited up and carrying tool bags, they reached the airlock and Kate sealed her helmet. Through the transparent faceplate, her expression was determined but frightened. She opened the communication channel. "Captain, repair team is ready for deployment." Ryan's voice came through, strained. "Kate, you've got maybe 10 minutes before our shields completely fail. After that, the pirates will punch through our hull." "Understood," Kate said. She looked at her team. "Everyone knows the plan. We get to their engine compartment, bypass the damaged power relays, and get their main drive back online. Fast and simple." One of the team members, a young man who looked barely 20, raised his hand. "And if the pirates shoot at us while we're out there?" Kate was quiet for a moment. "Then we die. But those Vaxians die too if we don't try." She opened the airlock. Space yawned before them, filled with weapon fire and debris. "Let's go save some lives," Kate said. They jumped. The external camera showed 5 humans in simple maintenance suits floating through space toward the Vaxian ship. The Wanderer hung between them and the pirates, absorbing hit after hit. Parts of its hull were already glowing red from heat damage. The repair team reached the Vaxian hull and attached magnetic boots. They moved quickly across the surface, heading for the engine section. Weapons fire streaked past them, close enough that the energy made their suits' radiation detectors scream warnings inside the Vaxian bridge. Zexter watched his monitors in horror. "They're outside? In the open. This is madness." His second officer looked up from her console. "Sir, I'm reading their suit specifications. Those are maintenance suits. They're not even rated for combat situations." "They're going to die out there," Zexter said. He opened the channel again. "Human repair team, please return to your ship. This is suicide." Kate's voice came back, slightly distorted by her suit's transmitter. "Already committed, Crimson Wing. We're at your engine compartment now." Popping the access panel. On the hologram, the camera showed Kate using a cutting torch to open a section of the Vaxian hull. The other crew members positioned themselves around her. Tools ready, inside the Wanderer, Paul Davidson stood in the center of the ship, surrounded by civilians. Men, women, and children looked at him with frightened faces. "Everyone stay calm," Paul said, though his own voice shook. "We need volunteers. The captain is redirecting power from life support to shields, which means we're going to run low on oxygen faster. I need people to manually control the air recycling systems." An older woman stepped forward. "I used to work in environmental systems. I can help." Others volunteered. A teenage boy, a man with gray hair. They weren't soldiers or engineers. They were farmers and teachers and shop owners heading to a new world to start over. But they stepped forward anyway. Paul showed them to the environmental control room. "The automated systems are being shut down so we can route that power to shields. You'll need to manually regulate oxygen flow to different sections of the ship. It's going to get hard to breathe, but we can't let the levels drop too low or people will pass out." The volunteers took their positions at the manual controls. Paul looked at them, these ordinary people doing extraordinary things. "Thank you," he said softly. The hologram switched back to the repair team. Kate had the access panel open and was inside the Vaxian ship's engine compartment, a cramped space filled with alien technology. Her hands moved quickly, tracing power conduits with a handheld scanner. "Found the problem?" she said. "The main relay cluster is fried. We need to bypass it entirely and route power through the secondary systems. Will that work?" One of her team members asked. "It should give them enough power for a short jump," Kate said. "Enough to get away from here." Another team member handed her tools. They worked together, cutting away damaged components and installing bypass circuits. It was delicate work, made harder by the bulky gloves of their suits and the constant shaking as weapons fire hit nearby. A blast struck close, and one of the team members was thrown from the hull. His magnetic boots lost contact and he began to drift. His scream filled the communication channel. "Got you," another team member said, grabbing his foot and pulling him back to the hull. "Stay focused." Kate kept working. Sweat ran down her face inside her helmet. "Almost there. Just need to connect the final power coupling." On the Wanderer's bridge, Ryan watched his shield display. The numbers were dropping fast. 70%, 60, 50. How much longer? He asked. Kate's voice was tight with concentration. 2 minutes. Maybe 3. "We don't have 3 minutes," Ryan said. He looked at his navigator. "Redirect all remaining shield power to the aft section. Protect the repair team's position." "Captain, that will leave our forward sections completely exposed." "Do it!" The shield configuration changed. The Wanderer's front hull began taking direct hits. Alarms blared as hull breaches opened in multiple compartments. Paul's voice came through. We've got decompression in sections 4 and 5. Sealing emergency doors. Kate finished the final connection. Done. Crimson Wing, try your engines now. On the Vaxian bridge, Zexter-S engineering officer activated the main drive. For a horrible second, nothing happened. Then the engines roared to life, burning bright blue. We have power, the officer said, disbelief in his voice. Engines at 40% capacity. Enough to jump. Zexter should have been relieved. His ship could escape now. His crew would live. But he looked at his viewscreen, at the Wanderer taking devastating damage, and felt something he had never experienced before. Shame. Human vessel, he said. We have engine power. We can create a warp field large enough for both our ships. Come with us. Ryan's voice was calm. Negative, Crimson Wing, our hull is too damaged. We'd tear apart in warp. You need to go now. We cannot leave you, Zexter said. You have to, Ryan said. Those pirates are getting ready to focus all fire on you now that they see your engines active. Every second you stay, you risk your crew. Go. Kate and her team were making their way back to the Wanderer, moving as fast as their magnetic boots allowed. Weapons fire intensified around them. Then it happened. A pirate missile struck the hull section right next to Kate. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but the force was devastating. The camera showed Kate and 2 other crew members thrown from the hull. Their suits ruptured, exposing them to space. They died instantly. In the council chamber, several delegates made sounds of distress. The Threen representative's antennae drooped. Even Krothus sat perfectly still, his amber eyes fixed on the hologram. The 2 surviving repair team members made it back to the Wanderer's airlock. Ryan's voice was hoarse. Crimson Wing, you are ordered to jump immediately. That's not a request. Zexter-S claws hovered over the jump activation control. Every instinct told him to stay, to fight, to help these humans who had saved his crew. But he knew Ryan was right. Staying would waste their sacrifice. Human Captain Ryan Brooks, Zexter said formally. The Vaxian Empire will remember what you have done here. We will remember your crew. We will remember your sacrifice. Just go, Ryan said. Please. Zexter activated the jump drive. The Crimson Wing vanished in a flash of light, leaving the Wanderer alone with the pirates. The pirate ships, enraged by the escape of their prey, turned all weapons on the human vessel. The Wanderer's shields were gone. Its hull was breached in a dozen places. Its engines were failing. Ryan sat in his captain's chair, looking at his remaining crew members. Paul at medical station, the navigator at his post. The 2 surviving members of the repair team, still in their suits, standing at the back of the bridge. It's been an honor, Ryan said quietly. The pirates fired everything they had. The hologram showed the Wanderer beginning to break apart, its hull fragmenting under the assault. But even as it died, the ship continued forward, still trying to put itself between the pirates and where the Vaxian vessel had been. Ryan's last words were barely audible over the sound of tearing metal and failing systems. Hope they make it home. The Wanderer exploded in a bloom of fire that faded quickly in the vacuum. Debris scattered in all directions. The pirates, satisfied, turned away to search for other prey. The hologram froze on the image of the debris field. Where 300 humans had been alive minutes ago, now there was only wreckage and silence. In the council chamber, the lights slowly came back up. Not a single delegate spoke. Many were staring at the frozen image. Others had turned away, unable to look. Jake stood at the speaking platform, his hands resting on the console. He let the silence stretch for several more seconds, watching the faces of the council members. Some looked shaken, others confused. Many simply stared at the frozen image of the Wanderer's debris field. Finally, Jake spoke. His voice was quiet but clear in the silent chamber. That was not an isolated incident. He pressed a button on his console. The hologram changed, showing a list of dates and locations. 47 entries scrolled slowly across the display. 47 times in the past 20 years, Jake said. 47 documented cases where human ships, stations, or colonies encountered aliens in distress. And 47 times, humans chose to help, even when it cost them everything. Krelthus shifted in his seat, his tail curling uneasily. Around the chamber, delegates began murmuring to each other. Jake pressed another button. The hologram showed a space station, small and crude compared to the massive alien structures most species built. The text identified it as Mining Station Kepler 442. 3 years ago, Jake said, this human mining station detected a fire spreading through a neighboring Zentran outpost. The fire was heading toward the Zentran fuel storage, which would have exploded and killed everyone on board. The hologram showed the mining station's airlocks opening. Atmosphere rushed out in visible clouds of freezing vapor. The humans deliberately vented their own atmosphere, Jake continued. They created a vacuum barrier between the two stations, starving the fire of oxygen before it could reach the Zentran fuel. 6 humans died from rapid decompression. 300 Zentrans lived. A Zentran delegate in the chamber stood up slowly, her 3 eyes blinking in sequence. I remember this incident, she said softly. We thought it was a malfunction. An accident. It was a choice, Jake said. A deliberate one. He changed the display again. This time it showed a ship with a red cross symbol on its hull. The medical vessel Hope, Jake said. 2 years ago, a crystalline research facility sent a distress call. They were caught in a radiation storm and couldn't escape. Their crystalline forms would have been destroyed by the radiation within hours. The hologram showed the Hope flying directly into a swirling cloud of deadly particles. The Hope flew into the storm, Jake said. Human bodies can't survive that level of radiation any better than crystalline forms can. The crew knew they would die, but they went in anyway, evacuated all 47 crystalline researchers and got them to safety. He paused, looking directly at the crystalline delegate section. The entire crew of the Hope died 3 days later from radiation poisoning. All 23 of them. A crystalline delegate's form shifted colors, showing deep emotion. The glow of understanding facility, the delegate said. We owe our best scientists to that rescue. Jake nodded. The humans never asked for anything in return. They never even requested that you acknowledge what they did. The hologram changed again and again, showing incident after incident. Each time, humans sacrificing themselves for aliens they had never met. A human colony ship that used its last fuel to tow a disabled Threen transport to safety, leaving the humans stranded. They were rescued eventually, but only after 3 colonists died from rationed life support. A human cargo hauler that rammed a meteor that would have destroyed an alien passenger liner, saving 800 lives while the 3-person human crew perished in the collision. A human family on a failing colony during an evacuation. They gave their only working escape shuttle to a group of 3 children whose own shuttle had malfunctioned. The family, Greg and Linda Peterson, and their 2 teenage sons, stayed behind and died when the colony's life support failed. For each incident, Jake provided documentation. Communication logs, sensor records, testimony from the aliens who were saved. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The council chamber remained silent, except for Jake's voice and the quiet sounds of translation devices. Finally, Jake stopped on one particular image. It showed casualty statistics, displayed in cold numerical form. In every documented first contact scenario involving danger, Jake said, humans have chosen to protect alien lives at the cost of their own. The survival rate for aliens in these situations is 94%. The survival rate for humans is 31%. He let those numbers hang in the air. We lose more of our own people saving yours than you lose in the disasters themselves, Jake said. Statistically, if you're in danger and humans show up, your best chance of survival is to let them sacrifice themselves for you. A delegate from a species Jake didn't recognize spoke up, her voice translating as uncertain. Why? What do they gain? Nothing, Jake said simply. That's the point. He turned to face the full council. You said humans are violent? You're right. You said we're primitive and make terrible decisions. You're right about that too. Our history is filled with wars and mistakes and cruelty. Jake's voice grew stronger. But that same species that can wage war also does this. We run into burning buildings to save strangers. We jump into rivers to rescue people we've never met. We donate organs to people whose names we'll never know. We die for each other even when it makes absolutely no sense. He gestured at the hologram at all the documented sacrifices. This isn't strategy. It's not politics. It's not even logical. It's just what we do. Krelthus stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. His voice was loud, but Jake noticed it shook slightly. You use one example from my people, Krelthus said. One Vaxian ship saved to make us seem ungrateful. But that does not change the fact that humans are dangerous and violent. Jake looked at him calmly. Representative Krelthus, do you know what happened to Officer Zexter? The Vaxian who was saved by the Wanderer? Krelthus went very still. After he was rescued, Jake said, Zexter spent 2 years requesting that the Vaxian Empire establish contact with humanity. He argued that any species capable of such sacrifice deserved respect. He eventually succeeded. The Vaxian Empire's first diplomatic mission to Earth was sent because of his testimony. Jake pulled up another document on the hologram. Zexter is now the Vaxian ambassador to Earth. He has spent the last decade working to build friendship between our species. He personally approved the nomination of human membership to this council. Krelthus' amber eyes were wide. That is my brother, he whispered. The chamber erupted. Delegates turned to Krelthus, speaking rapidly in their various languages. The translation devices struggled to keep up with the sudden flood of conversation. Your brother? Someone asked. You proposed banning the species that saved your own brother's life? Krelthus sank slowly back into his seat. His claws gripped the armrests and his tail had gone completely still, Jake continued, his voice cutting through the noise. Ambassador Zexter sends his regards to this council. He also sent a message specifically for you, Representative Krelthus. The hologram changed to show a Vaxian in formal diplomatic robes. It was clearly an older version of the officer from the Wanderer video. His scales had dulled slightly with age, but his amber eyes were the same. Zexter's recorded message played. My brother, if you see this, know that I do not blame you for your doubts about humanity. They are young and flawed and dangerous, but they are also the reason I am alive to send this message. Every member of my crew lives today because humans we had never met chose to die for us. Zexter's image looked directly at the camera. I have spent years among humans now. I have seen their violence, yes, but I have also seen their compassion. Their irrational, illogical, beautiful compassion. The galaxy is ancient and wise and calculated. Perhaps that is why it needs humanity. To remind us that sometimes the most foolish choice is also the most noble one. The message ended. The hologram faded. Jake turned to face Speaker Tharnax directly. You asked what humanity brings to the galactic community. This is our answer. We bring the willingness to make the stupid choice. The unprofitable choice? The choice that values life, any life, above logic or survival or resources. He looked around at all the delegates. You don't have to like us. You don't have to trust us. But you should know what we are before you judge us. We are the species that heard your distress calls and answered them. Every single time. The council chamber was silent once more. But it was a different silence now. Not the mocking quiet from before, but something heavier. More thoughtful. Jake returned to his observation platform. Lisa looked at him with wide eyes, but he simply stood at attention, waiting for the council's judgment.